Welcome back. We're still without Xander, and so I'm trying to struggle through this without somebody to pick on or make fun of. So I may have to pick on you. I hope that's okay. At the end of our last video, I mentioned this. I want to mention it right at the beginning of this one. I hope that you will check out our new study that we've just started, that started Sunday, on world religions, on belief in the existence of God, reasons to believe in the existence of God, other apologetics type things. I'm hoping that it's going to be a really fun one and that you really enjoy it. I've included, if you'll watch that one, it had Xander in it, also had my daughter Abigail in it, and one of Xander's friends that's been with us and a couple others was there in that first one. Hopefully, Abigail's going to continue being in those with me. In fact, the next one may just be me and her. I don't know, her and I, she and I. Anyway, may just be us. But hopefully, Xander will be involved with some of those as well. And I'm hoping to try to get a discussion on our prayer channel about uh, husbands and wives praying together. And I'm hoping to get Dawn to come sit in with me on one of those and talk about that a little bit. And I think that will be something enjoyable that we can all gain some uh, things from. But we want to continue today into our prayer lessons on Joshua. And we'll look at the second and last of Joshua's prayers that we have listed. If we find something else, we may come back to it later on. But this one is in Joshua chapter 10 and verse 12. And it's a very unusual prayer because it almost sounds like Joshua is bossing God around. It's almost like he's commanding God to do something. It says in verse 12, "At that time Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel." Okay, so here's his prayer. Now it may be possible that he's already prayed before this and we don't have that, and this is just what he says in front of Israel, maybe what God told him to say to Israel to let it be known what miraculous thing was fixing to happen. Maybe it's kind of like when God told Moses to strike the water to divide the waters, and Moses is saying, "Stand still and see that." Maybe something kind of like that. But here's what Joshua says, and it's again not quite like a normal prayer, but he is obviously making a very bold request, to say the least. Sun, that's S-U-N, the sun in the sky. Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. Joshua boldly, we've talked about boldness in prayer, and it doesn't get much more bold than this. Joshua just commands the sun in his prayer to God. He just commands the sun to stand still and the moon to just stop going. Just stay where you are. Now, of course, some people try, well, you see, this is proof the Bible doesn't know what they're talking about because we know the sun's not what's moving, the earth is rotating. Yeah, it's a perspective thing. From Earth, it looks like the sun's moving, right? I mean, even those scientists that gripe about that, or those atheists that will say something like that to try to debunk the Bible, they still talk about sunrise and sunset. It's a scientific thing, sunrise and sunset, and yet we know the Earth is spinning, and that's what makes it look like the sun is coming up and going down. It's okay. We can use accommodative language to describe something from our perspective, and it doesn't make it wrong. And so Joshua's not wrong here. What he's really asking is for the Earth to stop spinning. It's an interesting. Jesus told the disciples when he was promising them the Holy Spirit and promising them that God would answer their prayers and things like that, and that they would do mighty works. And he talks about their faith, and he says, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can tell this mountain to throw itself into the sea, and it'll do it. And we said, well, that never happened. The disciples never. But this is one of the things that he's building on. Can it happen? Could it happen? I mean, could the disciples have done that if necessary? Look at what Joshua does. He doesn't throw a mountain into the sea. He stops the rotation of the earth with his prayer. That's some powerful faith right there. And he asks for this, and we've already established that it's going to be answered. Uh, it was answered for a couple of different reasons. First of all, back in verse 8 of Joshua 10, the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear them. I have given them into your hands. Not a man of them shall stand before you." So God promises before they go into this battle, I'm going to kill them all. You're not going to, none of them are going to escape. None of them are going to stand. You're going to destroy them. So it's happening. In the verses following that, verses 9, 10, and 11, the battle is going well. I mean, Israel is winning. They're clobbering the Amorites. They are just destroying them left and right, but there's still a lot of them left. And the sun is sinking low, and it gets nighttime, they're going to get away, and so he did it. He asked God, to stop it. So God does it so that promise that he made can be fulfilled. When God makes a promise, he works to fulfill that promise. And so he stops the sun. Verse 13 and 14, the sun did stand still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. And here's an interesting phrase that's thrown in here. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? The book of Jasher is not a part of the Bible, but it must have been something that the writer of Joshua knew about. Another book that talked about this event as well as some others. Possibly some believe this little section, is this not written in the book of Jasher, was something that was kind of stuck in there later by a scribe, kind of a comment on what happened, that kind of added in later, so to speak, and edited in. But the book of Jasher, and there is a book called the Book of Jasher that, whether it's the actual book of Jasher that Joshua's got mentioned here or not, don't know. But it makes for a very interesting read. But again, remember, it's not inspired. So the sun does stop in the midst of heaven, and it did not hurry to set for about a whole day. That'd make for a long day. And for people on the other side, a long night for them. But it says then in verse 14, there has been no day like it before or since, when the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. So God listened to Joshua, and there hadn't been another day like that where he listened to a man and did something this fantastic. Now, I do want to set aside just a minute here to talk about um, rumors, conspiracy theories, just gullibility with things. Of course, some people would say we're gullible for believing this happened. That's fine. They can say that if they want to. But here, I want us to talk. He talks about it didn't hurry to go down for about a whole day, and and it's been passed around, and maybe you've seen it. If not, maybe you will, because it seems like lies never die. Uh, False prophets never give up. They keep putting things out there. Years ago, I mean, I saw this when I was probably a teenager. So, I mean, at least 30 years this has been around. Probably more than that. It's probably been around before I was born. But, it got passed around, mailed around. Now it's on email and Facebook and things like that. It gets passed around. These rumors that get going. So here's the idea. There's a thing sent around saying that scientists discovered by doing astronomical calculations of where the sun and stars should be and so forth, and they counted back and they found the lost day of Joshua. Well, there's no lost day. I mean, it's not something that could be found as such. And so, and then they found, well, but wait, that only accounted for, there was 15 minutes missing, and so what about the other 50? They found most of a day, but the time was off by a day. And so how was it off by a day when it was only a part of a day in Joshua? And then they try to bring in Hezekiah's time when God moved the sun back on the sundial 15 degrees, 15 minutes basically is what they would say, a certain amount. And then, oh, that was the rest of it. So, this proves the Bible was real. And they cite certain scientists and laboratories and things a lot of times in there. Never happened. None of that, none of that happened. There was no scientific study that tried to find the lost day of Joshua and found it or anything like that. And so don't fall for things like that. You read something like that, look into it. Look up those scientists, look up that laboratory, see if that's even a real thing, and check those things out. Don't be gullible. Don't fall for that. There's a lot of rumor that goes around time and again. A lot of it about a lot of different things. So don't give in. Don't get caught up in those things. But we can be excited to know that God does hear. God does listen. Now, maybe He won't stop the sun for us like He did for Joshua, but He is listening. And if it's to fulfill His promise, if it's to do what He wants done, He'll answer that prayer, and He'll make sure that it happens. And we can be confident of that. But quite an amazing miracle that took place here, and all because Joshua wasn't afraid to ask for the most amazing of things to happen. Joshua had seen some pretty amazing sights, and because of that, he believed, if God could part the Red Sea and part the Jordan River and cause all these plagues on Egypt and feed us for 40 years and our clothes not wear out and so on and so on. If God can do all that, then He can stop the sun if He needs to, and we need Him to. And so I'm going to call on Him to do that. And God did, and He answered that prayer. Don't be afraid to ask. The worst thing that can happen is God say no. But you never know what you could get. Johnny Ramsey used to say, no one has ever gotten all he could get from God because no one has ever asked enough. God can do it. God can do more than we imagine, Ephesians tells us, so He can certainly do what we can imagine if we'll ask. He can make it happen. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it's been beneficial to you, and hope it will help build your faith and your boldness to ask God for anything. And hope to see you again soon. So have a good day, and we'll talk to you next time.